If you're lucky enough to live in coastal North Carolina, you know all about the beautiful scenery. But you probably also know that our environment can be incredibly tough on our homes. And one of the most critical but often overlooked parts of your property is your septic system. It's fighting a battle every single day. So today, we're going to break down exactly what those challenges are and, more importantly, how you can make sure your system doesn't just survive out here, but actually thrives.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the unique challenges we face on the coast and why so many systems fail. Then, we're going to pivot to the good stuff, the solutions, covering the professional installer's playbook, smarter technologies you need to know about, and finally, the essential maintenance guide for you, the homeowner.
I know that sounds a little dramatic, right? But honestly, it's true. The unique environment we have here in coastal North Carolina is constantly, and I mean constantly, putting pressure on your septic system. Before we can even begin to talk about solutions, we first have to get a really clear picture of what we're up against. Your backyard really is a battleground.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the Coastal Challenge. We're going to break down the specific environmental pressures that homeowners are dealing with, especially in counties like Onslow, Pender, New Hanover, and Carteret.
You know, these 5 things basically create a perfect storm against septic systems. First off, you've got high water tables, meaning the ground is already soggy just a few feet down. Then you add our heavy rains, and boom, it's completely saturated. The soil itself is often the enemy too. It's either super sandy so it drains too fast, or it's this dense clay that doesn't drain at all. Then you throw in corrosive salt from the air and the heavy usage from vacation rentals, and you've got an environment that just completely overwhelms a standard septic system.
Okay, so now that we know what we're up against, let's look at exactly how these challenges cause systems to break down. This is the anatomy of a coastal septic failure. This right here is hands down the #1 problem, drain field saturation. The easiest way to picture it is to think of your drain field as a giant sponge. Now, when the groundwater is already high and we get a heavy rain, that sponge gets completely soaked from below. There's just no room left for the wastewater coming from your house. The system literally drowns. And that leads to those nasty sewage backups, or, even worse, pooling in your yard.
And then there's salt. Salt delivers this devastating 1-2 punch. First, you get salt water from storm surges that gets into the tank and kills off all the good bacteria, the little guys that are supposed to be breaking down the waste. Then, at the same time, the salty air is working from the outside in, just corroding everything. Metal parts, concrete tanks, you name it. It's a biological attack and a physical one all at once.
You know, sometimes the problem is literally the ground your house is built on. On the one hand, you've got areas with heavy clay soil. It acts just like a clogged drain. Water just won't pass through it. But then, on the other hand, out on the islands, you have super sandy soil that's like a sieve. Wastewater just rushes right through it way too fast to be properly treated, which is a huge risk for contaminating our groundwater. Both extremes are a recipe for failure if the system isn't designed specifically for them.
And then, of course, there's just plain old neglect. Because of all these other pressures we've been talking about, coastal systems have to be pumped more often. We're talking every 3 to 5 years, and probably closer to 3 for many homes. When you skip that, solids build up, escape the tank, and get into the drain field. And let me tell you, that kind of clog isn't something you can fix with a simple drain snake. It's often permanent damage.
All right, enough of the doom and gloom, right? Let's get into the solutions. This is where things turn around. Let's look at the Pro Installation Playbook, the absolute must-dos and the critical don'ts for building a system that can actually last here.
A professional installation is so much more than just digging trenches. It all starts with a deep dive into the site itself, profiling the soil, finding out exactly where that high water table is. From there, it's all about building up to get at least 24 inches of separation from the groundwater. It means using modern, corrosion-resistant materials like PVC, actively grading the yard to keep rainwater away, and, of course, following every single local code. Because they're there for a reason, to make these systems work.
And this is exactly why cutting corners is just a terrible idea. Ignoring what the soil is telling you, trying to save a few bucks by undersizing a drain field, or letting a heavy truck drive over the area, these aren't just mistakes. They are guaranteed tickets to a very expensive, very messy system failure. And a huge one. Never, ever connect your gutters or a sump pump to your septic system. You'll flood it in a single rainstorm.
So, moving on to Section 4. It's so important to understand that a septic system is not a one-size-fits-all solution, not even close. You have to pick the right technology for your property's specific challenges. So, let's look at a few of the best options out there. For so many properties here on the coast, the water table is just way too high for a conventional in-ground system. So what do? Well, if you can't go down, you gotta go up. That's exactly what an elevated mound system does. It's an engineered drain field built inside a sand mound that sits above the natural ground, creating that critical separation and giving the wastewater the dry soil it needs to be treated properly.
Okay, but what if your problem isn't a high water table, but that really dense, stubborn clay soil? That's where a low-pressure pipe system, or LPP, comes in. Instead of just letting gravity dump all the water in one place, a pump sends out small, even doses across the whole drain field. Think of it like a smart sprinkler system for your wastewater. It prevents any one spot from getting overloaded and gives the clay soil time to breathe and absorb.
Now, for the really, really tough properties, maybe a tiny lot right on the water, there's the high-tech option, Advanced Treatment Units, or ATUs. These are basically miniature wastewater treatment plants right in your backyard. They use things like aeration to produce incredibly clean water before it even gets to the drain field. The huge advantage? You can use a much smaller drain field. But there is a trade-off. They need electricity to run and require a mandatory, ongoing professional maintenance contract. And that brings us to our final section, homeowner maintenance. Look, a great installation is absolutely critical, but it's really only half the story. Now we need to talk about your role in protecting that big investment for years and years to come.
I really can't stress this enough. When it all comes down to it, more than the soil, more than the rain, more than the technology itself, you are the single most important factor in whether your septic system lives a long, healthy life. What you do inside your house every single day has a direct impact on that system buried out in your yard.
So what does good maintenance actually look like? Well, at the very top of the list, no surprise, is regular pumping. That 3 to 5 year schedule is non-negotiable. Next, you have to protect the drain field area itself. That means no driving on it, no building on it, no planting trees over it. Then come the daily habits, conserving water, especially during big storms, and being super careful about what goes down your drains. Finally, an annual inspection ties it all together, catching little problems before they become huge, expensive disasters. And you've got to be on the lookout. Keep your eyes, ears, and even your nose open for these red flags. If you start hearing gurgling sounds in your pipes, smell anything funky in the yard, see a patch of grass that's just a little too green and lush, or feel spongy ground near your system, call a pro immediately. These are your system's early warning signs. Catching them early can be the difference between a simple fix and a full-blown replacement.
So it all boils down to this, really. Success on the coast is about a partnership. It takes a knowledgeable professional who uses the right design and quality materials for the installation, paired with a homeowner who is mindful, careful, and protective of that system. When you put those two things together, you get a septic system that won't just survive the tough coastal environment, it'll thrive for decades to come.